So you want to learn how to make some gains? Well, you came to the right spot. Class is in session. Take a seat. What's up guys, Miguel here, and today we're going to talk about how to build muscle. I'd like you to think of this video as a checklist of things to take in consideration for a proper program so that you're on track to make some juicy gains. And before we delve deeper, keep in mind that these recommendations are more for hypertrophy training, meaning you want to get bigger, you want to get swole, you want to make sure that you're the next Lord Swoldemort. So without further ado, let's make sure that we're on the same page. Today we're going to talk about some different variables of programming, and these include volume, frequency, and intensity. Now when I started, I had zero idea what these variables meant, and to be honest, I just cared about how many exercises should I do, what's the best exercise for a certain body part, what is the best muscle building workout split, is it doing every muscle every day, doing full body, upper, lower. So there, remembered that you can still make gains without knowing what I'm gonna say, but knowing these variables definitely helped me fine-tune and improve my programs and make sure that I'm getting more gains with less effort and a bit less random stuff. So, starting things off in a very simple way, volume, I'd like you to think about it as the total number of hard sets that you're doing. And when I mean hard sets, we're talking about sets that are close to failure. When I say failure is, imagine you're doing, I don't know, bench press, and I ask you to do 10 reps, and on the 10th rep, that's it. You need me to help you get the bar up. That's muscle failure. So you don't need to get to there to get, you know, good results, but you should be around that level of intensity. Okay, so that's volume. So the total amount of work you're doing, the number of hard sets that you're doing per muscle group. So the amount of volume for chest, legs, etc. Then you have intensity, which is usually used for the intensity of the load, meaning are you using a very heavy weight, or the intensity of the effort. So if I ask you to do an exercise, how does it feel in terms of effort? Is it something you could be doing all day long and feel like you just keep on going? Or is it something that it's very hard and you could only do maybe 5 to 10 reps before you say, that's it? And then last but not least, we have frequency, which is a way of spreading your total volume and intensity throughout the week. So another way of looking at this is how many times per week, meaning over 7 days, are you hitting the same muscle group? So let's say you're training chest once a week, then your training frequency for chest is 1. If you're training chest 2 times a week, then you've got a 2 times frequency for chest. Quick maths. And these 3 variables, they're pretty much what make the whole program. And when I started, I had no idea about this. I thought that, you know, you had a program, you had some good exercises, and then you just had to do a certain number of sets. I had no idea how many sets I should do per exercise or per muscle group to get the best results. And I kind of just discovered things as I progressed. It did kind of work itself out in the end, but trust me, this will make your life a lot easier, especially if you're not familiar with these recommendations. And a quick disclaimer, this video is meant to be a quick and simple, kind of basic approach to these concepts and my personal experience and how I learned with them. But if you really want to learn more, I recommend that you check the work of people like Eric Helms, Jeff Nippard, Mike Israetel. There's a ton of other people I could mention, but these guys, they're like the, I don't want to call them gurus, but they're my source of information, and I think they do a wonderful job of explaining the masses everything about training for strength, hypertrophy, whatever your goal might be. I think these are the guys to go to. So let's keep going. So in a nutshell, in terms of volume, the current recommendations for hypertrophy, so for size, when you're trying to get the muscle bigger, are about 10 to 20 hard sets per week. And I know some of you might think, that's a lot. And some of you might think that 10 to 20 sets, that's nothing. Now keep in mind that these are hard sets, so sets where you're going somewhat close to failure, and not sets where you're just, going through the motions, or you feel like you're not even feeling the muscle work. This is something I see a lot at gyms. It's people that they do a lot of quote-unquote junk volume, which is where they add a ton of sets and then they didn't really do much. You ask them, you think you could do, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 more reps? And they'll probably go like, maybe. That's not the right answer. Should be, probably not. And keep in mind that if you're a beginner, you should probably start at the lower end of these recommendations, so around the 10 sets per week. And if you're more intermediate or advanced, then you can go up to the middle and the higher range of the recommendations. And then according to your recovery, adaptation to the program, and your overall results, you can decide if you want to add more sets or if you feel like you're progressing with the current amount of sets. Next up, we have intensity. So how hard should you be training? Now there's been, and it's still going, I think, a big debate on the evidence-based community about how hard you should train. And personally, my recommendation from everything I've gathered is that you should be training somewhat close to failure. So remember the example of the bench press, where if you do 10 reps, that's it, you can't do any more. Well, you should be around there, maybe you do 8, 7, 8. You can even start on week 1, 7 reps, and then week 2, 8 reps, week 3, 9 reps, and then on week 4 or whatever, you can go to failure. The main takeaway is probably you don't want to go to failure all the time. If you're a beginner, you can probably do this because you're not very familiarized with what actual failure is, so you might actually just think, I can't do another rep, where you probably can. But if you're an intermediate or advanced lifter, you probably don't want to go to failure all the time, just because the amount of stimulus to fatigue ratio, this is from Mike Israel, meaning the amount of results versus the amount of fatigue you're getting is way higher if you always go to failure. Meaning if you do 9 reps instead of the 10, you can probably still get pretty much 95-99% of the results without getting that added fatigue. And those 90 to 95 are probably not scientifically accurate, but it's just between you and me, so let's keep it rolling. And last but not least, we have frequency. Now the thing that you should know, pretty simple, is that training a muscle group twice per week seems to be better than just training it once per week if your goal is hypertrophy. There's still no real evidence of any higher frequencies for more muscle growth, but you should know that some muscles can handle a lot more than others. Think about your chest. Maybe if you train your chest twice a week, you can get a very nice pump and some great results, and you can even be super sore after one session and then it heals before the next session. But think about a smaller muscle group like your biceps. Perhaps you do, I don't know, some bicep curls, you feel like your biceps really stressed, but 1-2 days after that session you feel like you completely recovered, and perhaps you're only training biceps in 7 days, where if your goal is to maximize, bicep hypertrophy, meaning the size of the biceps, you could probably train it 2, 3, 4 times a week. So frequency, in a nutshell, 2 times better than once. But for some smaller muscle groups, you can get away with 3 to 4 times, depending on your program. If you're a beginner, stick to 2 times a week and you're golden. Perfecto. Alright, so now that you have all the variables and you know what you should do for each of them, so you know you should do about 10 to 20 hard sets per muscle group per week, you know that you should train each body part at least twice a week, and your workouts should be around, 3 to no reps in reserve. That's a new concept that I just said. So let me rephrase that. You should be training close to failure, and sometimes even going to failure. Like going to failure on a smaller muscle like your biceps, probably fine. Going to failure on squats, bench, or deadlift, probably not a great idea. Now these concepts are all fine and dandy, but if you don't apply progressive overload to your training, then you won't get the best results that you could have. And that's probably the most important thing besides everything I've just said. And progressive overload is just, in a very simplistic way, as your body gets stronger and as you adapt to training, your training should increasingly become harder so that you're always giving that stimulus to become even better. Does that make sense? So let's say you do 10 reps of bicep curls, and those 10 reps, you know, they're hard and they give you a super good pump. But 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, you do the same weight, the same 10 reps, and instead of getting a sick ass pump, you just feel like, you know, I could do some more reps. I feel like this used to be hard in the past. Then perhaps it's time to either add reps or add weights, or perhaps even add a set. So you always want to make sure that you're progressing in some way. For beginners, this is probably just adding some weight or reps over the weeks, and as you get more intermediate or advanced, then you probably need to look at your progression. Perhaps you just need to be a bit more meticulous about how you do things. So let's say a beginner that just started doing squats, they might find it easy to add reps and add weight, whereas an intermediate that has hit a plateau or is, you know, closer to their genetic potential, which I'm not going to go into depth there, instead of adding weight and reps, perhaps they could maintain the reps and focus on adding weight, or even lowering reps as they add weight throughout the week to make sure that they're always progressing. This is an example for squats. Bro tip: always track your workouts. I don't care if you do it in a training journal, I don't care if you do it on Excel, I don't care if you get an app from the iTunes or App Store, whatever it might be. Just track your workouts so that when you train, you know exactly what you did last week or last session, and you know where to improve. Because if you just train according to how you're feeling, you're probably gonna do, today I feel good, you do 10 reps, next week, I don't feel so great, you do 5 reps. Don't get me wrong, auto-regulation is a thing, so if you're feeling like shit on a specific day, it's perfectly fine to have a lighter, less intense workout. But if you just do it without consistency, if one day is hard, another day is light, and you never really know if you're progressing or not, you're probably not gonna get the best results that you can get. This is something I think a lot of people mess up, is that they don't track their progress, and sometimes they just go into the gym, they do something, they do a bit of every machine, whatever, and then on the next week they kind of do something different. They do another exercise, another rep range, another weights, so they're never really progressing. So focus on progressive overload. Do it. And there's just 2 more things that I'd like to talk about before we wrap this up and I give you some honest thoughts about how I fucked up. So number 1 is consistency. So you have all these variables, you have progressive overload, now you need to apply consistency. You need to be able to go to the gym and do your sessions every week. You need to be able to, in the grand scheme of things, to be able to progress, to make sure that you're either getting stronger or you're able to do more reps. There's got to be a way that you're tracking your progress. And this requires consistency and time. So what I'm gonna tell you now is that you should not always switch things up just because you feel like it. Don't get me wrong, some movements, some exercises, they won't feel good and you'll just feel like this is not for me. And that is fine if you want to find an alternative. Not everyone can do the same movements, or perhaps you can find a movement that gives you a better stimulus on your chest. But if you're the type of person that on the first 2 weeks you do, I don't know, 4 exercises for legs, and then on the 3rd week you decide to change it and it's a completely different workout, it's not even a hypertrophy anymore, it's probably gonna hurt your gains and it's not gonna be the best for your results. I think I've said that now about 20 times on this video, but you know, if you're always changing things, then how do you know if what you're doing is actually working for you? And this is something that the more experienced you get, the more you will value having this information, knowing what worked for you in the past, so that in the future when you're, you know, designing your new program, or perhaps, I don't know, thinking, what's the rep range where I saw the best recovery, best growth, these type of things matter the more time you put into it. And last but definitely not least, I'd say that this was my Achilles heel for, I don't know, 5 years, and this is recovery. And now when you're starting out, you can probably do 3 sessions per week and you'll recover well. When you need more, you can add another session, you'll still recover well. But when you get to higher intensities, or when you're putting more effort, more time at the gym, you'll get to a point where you need to take care of your recovery. And always keep in mind that you're not actually making the gains while training, you make the gains when you recover. So you give the stimulus, and then you recover, and there's an adaptation that allows you to do even more stuff the next time you get in the gym. What happens when you neglect recovery is that everything that you're trying to optimize kind of starts to go to shit. Let me be, as simple as I can be. Training too hard, which for a lot of people is not a reality, could lead to your sleep quality, not being as good as it could be. Your appetite not being as good as it could be. Your performance, it actually can stall or actually go down in the gym, which is a big no-no. And just, feeling tired all the time. I remember, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, I used to tell my brother, maybe I should find a supplement that helps me because I'm feeling tired more than I wanted to. And at the time, it was because I was doing high volume training. Like I have logged, so more than 20 sets per muscle group for weeks, for months. And I did get results, but I did get, fatigued, and sometimes you get mood swings. It's not fun. And if someone tells you you can get the same or better results by doing less, hell yeah, man. Fuck yeah, you do that. You don't want to, remember, the goal is to build muscle. The goal is not to do as much work as possible. You just want to do as much as you need to grow the muscle. And then you can have fun in other areas of your life. And that's something that it took quite a while for me to understand. Alright, so let's wrap the whole video up. Let's go back to the overall recommendations. So volume, 10 to 20 hard sets per week per muscle group. Beginners should stay at the lower range, so about 10 to 12 sets, and that's plenty for muscle growth. Just remember that you're trying to stimulate the muscle, and you're trying to, get a sweet pump, get some gains. You're not just going there to do as much as you can like I used to do. For intensity, train somewhere that feels hard, or somewhere that feels like you're putting on a face when you're doing some reps. You should be, get comfortable getting somewhat uncomfortable. And then for frequency, twice a week, that's more than enough. You don't need to get fancy, you're gonna get some gains. And prioritize recovery. When I say that, I mean make sure you're getting at least 8 hours of sleep, and this is good quality sleep. Don't fap, or don't, play video games like I also did that in the past, or watch Netflix, and then when you go to bed you just can't sleep because your brain's still wired. So prioritize recovery and apply progressive overload and consistency to your training. Don't be eager to change too much too fast at the same time. So if you want to add a set to something, add the set, see how you feel, allow it to go for a couple weeks before you do something like, add weight, add a set, add reps, and then you're like, I feel tired, I don't know what's happening, but something's changed. So take your time, track your data, make sure you're training with intent, focus, and get some gains. Get some goddamn gains! So that's the video for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something or relearned something. And by now you should have an idea that there's no one magic workout routine or one magic exercise, but there's a lot of tools that you can utilize to make sure that you have a program that is tailored to your specific needs, to something that allows you to train the way you like to get the results that you want to get. And with that, my friends, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do whatever you like. You can even share this with your grandma if she wants to get jacked. And then I'll see you on the next one. Boop.